I didn't actually pick up Project Justice until college, like like end of high school, college era, where I burned it on a CD because I was just going, like, I was just a broke college kid, and like I was like, I'm like, man, I really want to explore the Dreamcast library. So I started just, yeah.
Want to know something?
What's that?
Well, when I moved to the U.S., when I got to college, just like you, the first thing I got was a Dreamcast.
Really?
Yeah, because I never had a Dreamcast, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get a Dreamcast, and I finally got it because like someone was selling it for only like $50. I'm like, yes, yes, and then I did the same thing. I burned Project Justice because the game's too expensive.
It's too expensive. Even in college, yeah. Like they were like, I remember when I was in college too, people started like charging like $50 for like Dreamcast CDs. And like, the actual copy of it. Like I bought Power Stone 2 for like 50 to 60 bucks off eBay. And that was like in 2000 and I want to say it had to be 2009, maybe 2010. And so basically I was just like, oh man, this is expensive. This is as much as like a new PS2, PS3 game.
Okay, but real talk, do you prefer Power Stone 1 or Power Stone 2?
I think you know the answer to this, and the answer is Power Stone 1, 100%.
Yes! 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 I'm so happy.
I feel like that should be like an FGC personality test. Like the last question in this test would be like, are you a Power Stone 1 or Power Stone 2 person? Because I can tell you so much.
I mean,
for sure.
I feel like people that like think Power Stone 2 is better maybe don't fully understand Power Stone 1. And that there's way more mechanics. It's just a better game. It's a better like 1v1 experience. It's more fun.
Yeah, it's either that or okay, because like Power Stone 2, it's still fun, and back then we actually have arcade cabs in like multiple arcades in the Philippines that have the 4 Power Stone setups. And there's always consistently like 4 people there, and it's really fun, like just seeing 4 players fight against each other. But yeah, like Power Stone 1 is definitely like a much deeper game.
Yeah, for sure. I love that game so much. It pretty much anything on the Dreamcast for the most part is like very much deep rooted in my love for fighting games. When did you start, streaming, and how did you like become a VTuber? How did that kind of happen?
Oh, okay. So I actually started streaming. Okay, so this Twitch account that I'm on right now, it all started because someone was doing a raffle. And it's like one of the things you can do to increase your chances is to like follow them on Twitch. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a Twitch account. And yeah, so that's the birth of my Twitch account in 2013, and somewhere in 2014, I think I kind of wanted to start streaming, and so I got myself a Chief Capture card, and I said, okay, what do I play? And the only thing I streamed was Mario Kart Wii. I would just play Mario Kart Wii and stream snipe just about everyone in that category. And by everyone, I mean like the only like 1 or 2 or 3 people streaming in that category at the time. Back when Twitch wasn't really that mainstream yet. Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially what I did for like just about everything. One of the things I kind of miss though is like being able to do song requests without the risk of doing DMCA though.
That was legendary. Back when they had the bots in the chat and you could like add songs to like other people's playlist. Oh man, I missed that so much.
Yeah, that's what I did too.
There's actually a way around that if you didn't know.
Oh?
Okay, so I'll tell you. So if you go into your settings, there's a setting that you can say, I want this channel. Like you could say, I want this channel to not be captured in the VOD if you use OBS. And you just check that, and then you uncheck it on each other like audio channel. And basically it won't pick that up in the VOD. So you could still do song requests, and then like it'll pick up every other audio in the actual VOD, so you won't get copyright striked for that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that one I didn't know, but what? Okay, that's actually genius.
Yeah, I had to figure it out a little bit. There was another, I think Quintessence is in here. You know, he's the other co-host that he's not here today. But
Oops, my bad.
Oh my God, where are we going? So yeah, he does song requests too, and I don't know if he wound up you know, doing that or not. But either way, that's one way you could actually get around that whole issue, is so you won't get those copyright strikes.
Nice. Early Twitch was such a vibe like that. Like it was a lot more like just hanging out with the streamer. Like it was a little bit less influencer-y and more just like it was like hangout session with a video game.
Yeah, that's actually really true.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I do miss.
100%. And I mean, like I think I joined because of Twitch Plays Pokemon. Like I found out about Twitch because of it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, okay, so one of the reasons why I started using Twitch more was actually Twitch Plays Pokemon.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been there for like a good chunk, and that's where I do find myself sometimes at school just watching Twitch Plays Pokemon, because I'm like, I have to be here! They're near the Elite Four!
Yeah, some of those arcs were so funny, just like the random names they picked for the Pokemon, and like, that was such a cool era of Twitch, where Twitch was doing like weird experimental stuff. Like I remember when they aired all of Power Rangers, they had a Power Rangers marathon, that was awesome. I remember when they did a Yu-Gi-Oh marathon, and people were like going on about their favorite episodes in the chat. Just fun times.
Yeah.
So like at what point did you kind of like, you know, get sucked into this world of like rival schools and Project Justice, and like how did you find the community you're a part of now mostly?
Oh, okay, so here's the thing. I kind of found the community like a while ago, like many years ago. There was a Discord for it, but you know, there was like no net play and other stuff. So like the server was essentially, you know, not very active at all. Yeah. And I actually left it.
Oh my God.
and then years later, I found out that, you know, okay, so Null DC happened, and so Null DC Bear was like the first time where, like, you know, you could easily connect to people, like, you know, playing Dreamcast games, because back then, like, you kind of have to do net play through like I forgot which emulator it was, but it desyncs so much. And some people back then too would hold tournaments using Parsec, but it's kind of a bit harder, especially if you're going to be competing against, like, you know, people are around the world, because like, you know, that's kind of how Parsec is. Unless like you're in, like, you know, the same region, then yeah, it can work well. But you know, it's a bit harder to do too. But like Null DC Bear showing up like took off all the a lot of the hassles that people had, and essentially I'm like, oh my gosh, they're doing tournaments, I better join too. And then I joined. I thought I was pretty good, because here's the thing, like so there was like this convention that happened in our city, and someone's like, oh, you know, because someone brought Project Justice, or was like talking about Project Justice, and they were like, oh, you play Project Justice too? It was like, okay, we have to bring a setup, and they brought a setup, and I just whooped everyone. And I thought, I was like, oh, I'm waiting for the day that someone could finally beat me. And
wait for a new challenger, yeah?
Yeah, that's how I felt.
Yup.
That's how I felt. And then, like, you know, I was also at like at Magfest, and there was Project Justice there. And I whooped everyone again, and I'm like, oh, but there was like a few people that was like, you know, like matching up against me. I was like, oh my gosh, there's actually good people. I'm like, I'm so happy. I'm like, I wish there's someone that could whoop me one day. And I'm like, oh, I'll wait for that day. And then you know, Null DC Bear happened, and then, you know, there was tournaments being held by Pylord. That's like the admin of that Discord community for Project Justice, and And I entered there, and I got whooped by the current champion of EVO. I'm just like, yes, finally! I'm so happy. I've never been so happy getting whooped by someone. And I realized there was still a lot for me to learn, because I was pretty convinced that I was pretty strong, but there was still so much. And then yeah, so like that happened, and then EVO 2019 happened. And that was the first time they had a Project Justice tournament over there. And I'm like, I didn't know, I'm so stupid. And I watched it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so many strong people. Cause like you know, Korea and Japan showed up there, and they were like on a whole different level that I've never seen before. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know it could be this hype. And I was like, okay, I really want to get into this again. I want to take this more seriously. and then yeah, so that was the beginning of the arc, and I'm just like, you know, I keep joining online tournaments, and I'm just waiting, and I'm waiting for or like, you know, like there are tournaments here and there, but for EVO, I'm just waiting. I'm like, okay, there's no tournament happening here. Oh, it's COVID, so I guess it's not happening. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting. All right. When are they gonna hold a tournament for Project Justice at EVO? And then and then one day, I just randomly decided, because I randomly just asked, you know, so the people that's like, you know, doing the side tournaments for EVO, they're, you know, it's called
the
Vortex
BYOC tournaments.
Yeah, the BYO
console. Yep.
Yeah, the BY it's a BYOC tournaments now, but back then it was like Vortex Gallery, and before they rebranded to Vortex Gallery, it was Anime EVO. So I asked the Anime EVO guys, I'm like, is there anyone? Is there Project Justice this year? And they were like, so far, no, there, I don't think anyone's running that. And I'm like, not even Neo Russell from 2019. They're like, nah, no. And I'm like, what if I run it? And I did it as a joke, and it was really a joke, because like I only have one Dreamcast. I'm like, how am I gonna run it like this? And they told me, they're like, don't worry, if you cannot find any Dreamcasts, like we'll provide them for you, and we'll provide you like, you know, the monitors that you need. I'm like, are you serious? And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But in the end, we didn't even need that, because Kalis, like, that's a champ of EVO. Like he has all the hookups, and he has all the Dreamcast with the mods, so that we don't even need to look for CRTs anymore. We could just plug it in onto the monitors, and you know, it's essentially like lagless. Plus it's upscaled nicely too, so it looks better on stream. So it's like, oh my gosh, everything just fell in place like super nicely too. So yeah, and you know, this also happened because I was staffing for a convention, and I was running tournaments, and Kalis was there too. And then I told him, meet me at the Project Justice station, because there's a Dreamcast there with Project Justice, and I played him. I'm like, if I beat you, well, you have to run Project Justice with me.
Gambled it all.
Money match for running a tournament.
I did it. I didn't win, but he still did it with me.
Okay, well, that was nice of him.
That's the homie. I love that. That's true FGC right there.
Yeah, but that's essentially, like, you know, what was going on. Yeah, I was really hoping that, you know, like, Neo Russell would run it again, but he's in Canada, so I don't think he could always come by here all the time. Yeah. And Pylord, you know, the community lead, is usually busy doing stuff, especially nowadays too. So I guess, you know, for times like this, maybe someone needs to step up. But I still owe it all to, like, you know, those guys for making all of this happen, because really without them, I don't think like a lot of the players would be able to find out about, like, you know, being able to fight competitively like this. But yeah, now that we have Null DC Bear and Fightcade, there's so much new players coming to this just because it's so much easier now to play online.
Yeah. I think I think that's awesome. Because it was incredibly difficult to like, and I feel like this was like I feel like a lot of people had this experience where sort of like, I remember going to school, I remember going to high school, and it's like, hey, you know, you talk about video games with people, and it's like, hey man, what are you playing? And it's like, you know, this, and then you kind of comes up and you're like, hey, you ever played the Dreamcast? And most people are like, what is that? I have a PlayStation or I have an Xbox. You know, most people kind of, you know, skipped over the Dreamcast and you know, and just kind of showing and like I've always kind of shown and introduced people to these games that like most people had never heard of, at least, you know, in my kind of small community of people and where I live. And you know, I think that it's amazing what people can do now, especially with like emulation and, you know, Fightcade having like a great server and
rollback.
Yeah, I mean, does and I'm pretty sure that Fightcade 2 has rollback, correct?
Yeah, Fightcade has rollback. Yeah,
through Flycast.
Yeah, Flycast does have rollback. That's one of the coolest things. Like, there's still some input drops, but
yeah,
oh my gosh, if you think about like just 3 years ago, dude, times were so different.
Yeah, for sure. And like the only real way to kind of get people into the game beforehand was just to be like, hey, come over my house, I'm gonna throw this like tournament, and I'm gonna show you guys what Project Justice and Rival Schools is, and we're gonna get to try out and play these games, you know. That was kind of it. But now, you know, like I had my the person I was playing against, like the two people I was playing against, one's my editor for this channel, and Chewy, and I introduced him to Project Justice through your tournament because I woke up, I would have watch parties through my Discord, and like, you know, I threw it on, and I went to our fighters in Reddit, and they're like, hey, they're throwing a Project Justice disc, and like, they posted
oh my gosh. I didn't expect that people would actually come from a Reddit post. I'm so happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it and I was like, oh damn, but what time are they hosting it? And I think I missed it, but then I just went back the next day and I watched the VOD like before EVO started. And like, you know, I watched all of it, and you know, I had people were coming by to like check out EVO and hang out. And so I introduced like a few different people to Project Justice, and then, you know, I had them join Fightcade 2, and then that's why I was like, as soon as I saw the tournament, I'm like, okay, I love this game and I've loved it forever. I want to talk about it on the podcast. So that's, you know, of course, that's why I found you, because, you know, you were the person hosting the tournament through, you know, Twitch, and so that's kind of how this whole ball got rolling.
Yeah. I'm really glad, because like there was a lot of like weird difficulties this year.
Yeah.
That, you know, it didn't even feel like it would happen this year, but it actually did, and I'm really glad that everyone was. There was still a lot of people that showed up despite everything being announced so late, and yeah, so it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. It really feels like Project Justice is really coming back to life.
Yeah, I hope so. And for sure, that's like one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is like getting to meet the people that are still keeping a lot of these like niche and obscure games alive when they've kind of always deserved more shine in general. So like if we can get anybody, you know, listening to this to kind of like jump in, join the Discord, you know, pick up Fightcade 2, play the game, and then realize how great it is, you know, I think that's a win, you know.
Join the community, check out the scene, all that stuff. I mean, it's the great thing about fighting games is like the game is out there. It's complete. You can play it now. You can play it for the last 10 years or whatever. Like all you need is a way to hop on, and with like Discord and Fightcade now, it's even easier to play other people and like nerd out about the same thing. Like it's the coolest thing about the internet.
Yeah. So what was it like kind of you know, running the EVO Side Tournament? Because it seemed like there was a lot that kind of happened, like a lot of like little, you know, you said there were some issues in general.
Okay. There's a weird bunch that happened. Okay, so um, in a personal sense, I believe all of these issues wouldn't have happened if if EVO just let Vortex Gallery handle the side tournaments again this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so EVO decided that they would have the tournaments as the BYOC tournaments, and that they would basically handle it by themselves. However, Street Fighter 6 had like 7,000 people there, and I think they put a lot of the focus on the main tournaments just because there's so many people this year. So yeah, there was one of the big main issues is just kind of the lack of communication. We didn't really, they didn't really get the list of approved games to run over there until like the last month before EVO. So a lot of people had to scramble just to get all the players getting together, advertise everything and just gather all the materials within a month.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was actually crazy because even when that was the case, there like a bunch of the TOs that that run all the side tournaments, like everyone just came together and they they made sure that everything would run well for each other. Like for example, when when we were told, okay, you guys got approved, but everyone we didn't get like a scheduled slot. It just says you can run your tournament anytime between 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. and we were like, but what if we clash with other people? so yeah, and everyone got. I mean, it kind of happens sometimes, especially last year because there was like 60+ side tournaments. But
Wow.
yeah, but with this, it's just like maybe we're just gonna throw we're just gonna gamble on everyone's times. But someone all of us came together and we just told each other our times, and then someone gathered all the times together and all the games together, and they made a website that essentially lists down all the side tournaments.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's
shoutouts
cool.
to Anime FGC for that, because
Oh wow.
yeah, because the thing is, EVO was like, okay, we're gonna make a post that will list down all of the BYOC tournaments. It never happened.
I had trouble finding all of the side tournament information, and if it wasn't for our fighters, I wouldn't have been able to find the Project Justice tournament. And
Yeah.
like people in my Discord coming in and being like, oh, they're hosting Garo over on this channel, and it's like, they are, and it's like, sick, let's go watch Garo. And then we had like the multi-stream up and everything. But absolutely, it was difficult finding.
Yeah, it was just like an afterthought, or rather, I feel like we were just an afterthought this year, and a bunch of us felt like we were left off to fend off for ourselves. So,
Which is a bummer, because EVO is supposed to be the big yearly celebration of fighting games, and you're gonna have your main stage stuff, but I mean shout out and show some love to all the smaller scenes that this is their year to kind of come together and play with everyone who loves this random obscure game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Give me a mega thread, give me something that shows me where all it is, so I can find it easy.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the people that creates these threads, creates these websites, creates these Google Sheets that just has all the information that you need. These people are really dedicated to make sure that people do these smaller scenes too get the attention that they deserve, and I'm really happy about that.
Definitely some unsung heroes. Yeah.
And then I think I didn't get a chance to ask you. I think I might have mentioned it, and I don't know if you brought it up, because there's a lot we've kind of gone over. But before we delve into the gameplay and history, how did you actually get into being a VTuber? When did that kind of happen?
Okay, it's actually pretty hard to tell when it all started, because the first time I've ever used a VTuber avatar was either in 2015 or 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back before it wasn't really a popular thing yet. But yeah, there were already like VTuber avatars that you could just get from a program called FaceRig, and I kind of did that, but at the time my computer wasn't as strong yet, and it ate up too much of my resources. So even like 2D games was like lagging for me. So yeah, I'm like, oh, I can't really use this yet. So yeah, after a few times I did that, I didn't really use it, and then essentially one day I was like, I kind of want to get back to this, and so nowadays there's like a lot of artists that they kind of specialize with making like making like VTuber models, but back then like it wasn't really a popular thing. So I think like in 2018 I finally found someone, and I'm like, can you do this? And I commissioned them, and I finally, and like 1 year later I got my VTuber avatar, and that was like in 2019, I guess. But I think a little bit before 2019, I think a little bit before 2019. I'm actually, the whole history is like so confusing. But yeah, I think a little bit before 2019. So there was like this program called like Vroid. No. I think it's a year later. There was a program called Vroid, which lets you like create like 3D models. This model right here is actually a Vroid model. But back then, like one of my friends tried out Vroid and basically created a 3D version of my avatar. But yeah, in 2019, that's when I got my first one, and then a year later I got my first 3D one, and then a few years later, well, I got this updated 3D one. I ended up dating a 3D artist, and she made this one for me.
Perfect. It all worked out, right?
It's just brand synergy right there.
United by fate. Exactly.
Yeah, united by fate. The whole meeting too it's all because of fate too. Because okay, like the thing is like the reason how I met that person is because okay, so like I was just sneaking into this one VTuber's chat, and I just saw, I was like, oh, Toho, because I love Toho, and someone said, oh, if it isn't the creator of Super Lunch Hop Double Laser, because I also make indie games, and that person found out, and then I think if it wasn't for that, like a lot of things would have not happened. Not even this model. So it's like, oh my gosh, how did everything just all plays out? Like I think if it's not for like small steps, as in, hey, can I, if no one's running it, I can run Project Justice, I think things would just play out differently in history.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you gotta be willing to chase the things you like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's great that you stepped up, especially when kind of like no one was sort of there to push Project Justice.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, like I kind of wanted to have my own local too, but it also kind of made sense because like like when I moved to the States, like there wasn't a lot of people also playing Project Justice, so there wasn't a lot of sense, I guess. But I would have at least loved to like play with a few people, even though they were not that good. I would have loved to teach them. Also in Guam, like the person that said they would run it for me, dude, it's so funny because like he's the one who taught me in the end before I left how to run tournament streams. And
okay.
because of that, like when we finally ran Project Justice, I'm like, hey, check this out, and it was like, you're still using the old stuff I gave you from like 10 years ago. I'm like, yes, it's because you got me this far. And then I visited home a few months ago, and he was like, okay, I'll finally run the Project Justice tournament you've always wanted. But unfortunately, he got sick, so it didn't happen again.
Germs is always lurking.
It'll happen.
But yeah, it was so funny because like I owe a lot of thanks to him too, because he's the one who he was like the main TO of like our small island of Guam, and like he runs everything, he streams everything, and basically like a bunch of that knowledge got passed down to me, and because of him too, in Vortex Gallery, I asked him, can you commentate? And he was so hyped too. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So like, I feel like for the people that do not know or aren't familiar with kind of Project Justice, I want to kind of like describe some of like the gameplay aspects of it, and like
and the story. Give me some story stuff too.
Oh, I don't know enough about the story. I only kind of like covered gameplay. I don't know if you know any much about the story there, Chair, but
I'm just gonna say, the Rival School series has one of my favorite stories in any fighting game. It's because I'm a sucker when it comes to friendship stories. Let me just tell you something.
Go for it.
We got things as. You want me to spoil you Roy's ending?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So in Rival Schools 1, he starts off as the most racist person ever. He's going around like, oh, I hate Japanese. These guys are losers all the time.
He's an American exchange student, right?
Yeah, he's an American exchange student, and he hates it there. He hates Japan, and he constantly complains about this. Like, why do we even have to investigate this whole problem? I don't care about these people. And soon enough, like as he goes forward, he's fighting these people, and then so some of the other schools started helping them out, and they're like, and he's like, oh, you guys aren't bad at all. and then Hinata comes out, and Hinata comes out and saves them. He's like, oh, why did you come save us? We tried to kill you once. It's like, because we're friends fighting for the same purpose. And it's like, friendship, huh?
Damn.
And then
shonen anime protagonist arc.
Yes, and then in the end he he was beating up the final boss. He's like, I don't really care about this country, but you guys are being dicks, so I'm gonna beat you up. and then at the end, he's going back to America. He was like, I have to go back to America, but I feel like I want to do something more for these people. And then it just gives you a time skip to many years later, and Roy becomes the president of the United States. and he was the one that connected, that really strengthened the relationship between Japan and the United States.
The real lessons we learned were the friends we made along the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of these stories are just people having conflicts with each other, and they get resolved, and everyone just becomes friends, and it's real nice. Like Akira's story is about finding his older brother, but she's scared that that people won't help her won't accept her to go with her on her quest if they find out that she's just a girl. So she acts like a boy instead. But in the end, everyone just accepted her as as a person, and she just made the friends that she wanted along the way too. When they find her bro, and yeah, and the Taiyo school, Kyosuke was supposed to be the backstabber of the group, but then he realized that by hanging out with these people, he's like, no, this is wrong, dude. It's like, I'm standing by you guys now.
Yeah, that's mad wholesome. Yeah, no, one of the things I've kind of heard about this game and kind of love about the idea of this game, especially when watching other people's videos about it, is it's cool that they tried to make a fighting game where the characters were humans. Yeah, fighting is the background, but they wanted the characters to be relatable to real people. And because they have normal human character arcs, it kind of creates this kind of wholesome game where you can kind of find things to identify with about each character.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's weird having a fighting game where not everyone's Superman, but at the same time, it's also kind of cooler because it's okay, I can kind of get into this story now,
Yes, that's kind of how I feel too. Every character feels like they have a personality. They all stand out with each other.
Yeah, very strong characterization, and super anime aesthetic was kind of popular with the creator, Itsuno. Seemed like he always brought an anime aesthetic to everything that he made at the time. For sure. So I don't know what the overarching plot of the game is. Like, all I know is that, like, essentially these schools are, you know, fighting for some reason whatsoever.
For funding.
Okay, so for Rival Schools 1, basically what's happening is Justice High School is brainwashing all the students to come to their school. And basically the brainwashed students are attacking other schools so they could brainwash them into coming to their school. And because you know, they're, you know, each school is like fighting brainwashed students from other schools, they keep thinking that, you know, hey, it's you guys are attacking our school, but they still don't know like who's behind all of it. And in the end, they find out that it was Justice High School, and in the end, Hyo is the one behind it, because everyone thought it was the principal behind it, but the principal was also brainwashed by Hyo. And the principal is Raizo. He's not playable in Project Justice, right. But yeah, the principal wasn't evil all along. He's Basu's dad, by the way.
Yeah. He's the main character's dad.
Yeah, he's not really, he's kind of a bit of the harsh principal, but you know, he's not really a bad guy. He's in the end, he's just a dad that's just been brainwashed. So yeah, and Hyo wanted to do that just because he wanted to have his army to rule the world.
Which is such a hilarious like thing for someone in high school to want, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, but of course, just like Kyosuke, like his brother taught him he was like, oh, but how did you defeat me? And then Kyosuke was like, wait, because when I was following your orders, I felt like something was missing, but when I fought alongside with these guys, I knew what I was missing, and that's how I was able to defeat you. But it's not over for you yet. You don't need to brainwash people. You just need friends. And it's like,
oh so man,
that's what it is. So yeah, that's Rival Schools 1, and then Rival Schools 2. Like, you know, he was pretty cool, but then there's this other guy from the same family clan named Kuro, and basically what he did was like he cloned himself into Batsu, and it's called Vatsu. And then he started attacking like all the schools, and all the friendships that was made like throughout Rival Schools 1 like was kind of getting shaky because of him. So yeah,
we must protect friendship.
So yeah, Vatsu was messing up everyone, and then, you know, there's this girl named Momo, like, you know, she's a cutesy little girl, so like everyone would like, you know, like help her if she needs it, but what she's actually doing is just like, it's like those guys are attacking me. It's like, hey, what are you doing attacking this little girl? But you know, she's actually just trying to mess everyone up, and because of that, all the schools like started hating each other again. And in the end,
screw the Shimune adaptation. I want this anime. This sounds amazing. I would watch the hell out of this.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It like, you know, these are some pretty crazy plots. But yeah, like in the end, one of the things I kind of like about Rival Schools, I mean, like, you know, Project Justice, is that so in Rival Schools 1, like, you know, you're mostly stuck with the same characters that you use, but like in Project Justice, like you select characters based on who's available on each chapter. So sometimes you get like these chapters where two schools just unite like together, and like, you know, fight the final boss. And you get to see like, you know, oh, these guys like made up. It's like, oh, they finally reunited again. And in the end, unfortunately, so Hyo gets possessed by his dad, and Hyo dies, and it's like no.
If I remember correctly, too, there is a Rival Schools comic. It's actually made by Udon.
Yeah,
Fighter Udon, cool.
Yeah, that one I didn't read yet, but I always tell myself I need to get around this, and yeah, I still haven't.
Yeah, I've actually thought about reading it because I remember as a kid I really enjoyed the Street Fighter Udon comics, like, quite a bit. I would go and buy them all the time. I was like very much into it, and yeah, I remember I think the Street Fighter one still holds up. So It's definitely worth checking out. It's not. I don't think it's canon to the actual games or anything. It's just sort of like based off of that.
I mean, didn't they finally confirm in 5 though that Rival Schools and Street Fighter share the same universe? Because I know a couple Rival Schools characters show up in 5. So
yeah. Well, the other thing too is that Sakura is in Rival Schools 1.
Yeah.
Oh, cool! I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was part of the Street Fighter universe, like since the start.
Lost.
Yeah, it basically, it's always been in the same universe, and apparently so is Tekken, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Also, the fact that Ibuki's uniform from Street Fighter is just a Taiyo High School uniform.
Cool.
One of Capcom, in my opinion, one of Capcom's strengths has always been its ability to build universes or like world building, and sort of being like, oh yeah, that's in the same team, like. I think my earliest kind of memory is like Captain Commando to Final Fight. It's in the same city. The first stage is in the same city. It's all in Metro City.
Yeah,
but it's just like 100 years apart from each other.
Yeah.
Like Captain Commando has the same fighting style as Guy from Final Fight. Like he's the Bushin Ryu successor. Stuff like that.
And Final Fight is eventually became part of Street Fighter Alpha, and now Street Fighter 6. The main city is just Metro City.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool, and I've always loved that about Capcom and like their fighting games. They're like, just let's just tie it in, little sprinkles of things in there. You know what I mean? But yeah, so like if you were kind of to describe like the play style of Project Justice and Rival Schools, how would you describe it? Because for me, it really feels like a 1v1 Marvel game in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah. I actually would tie this game more as a 2D fighter with a bit of 3D. And let's just say it's mostly a 2D fighter, but you can just sidestep. Yeah. And sometimes the camera rotates too.
2.5D.
Yeah. I imagine 2.5D more as 2D sprites on the 3D environment.
Yeah.
But I guess you could also kind of view it that way. But yeah, I'd say it's actually hard to describe Project Justice because it's just its own thing. It's really its own thing. It's hard to make ties with a lot of other fighting games with this particular title, because there's not really a lot of titles that has 2 different launchers. You have a rival launcher that really makes them go high up there, and you got yourself the mini launcher, which lets you do a smaller air combo. And you'll one of the things I kind of like about this is so in Marvel vs. Capcom, you can call forth your teammates to do their own supers and then do it together with you. What I like about this is that every character has their own specific animation when it comes to doing a team together. And if you have 5 bars, you can bring your whole team together. And that's one of the things too, that they did pretty good. The whole story aspect of Rival Schools is being together and fighting together. And these unique animations with all the characters just makes it feel so real. And yeah, so it's so hard to describe what this fighter is. It's not Marvel because you can't call your teammates whenever you want. It's not King of Fighters because if one character dies, they're forced to switch out. It's kind of its own thing. So yeah, it's a team fighter, but you don't. It's a team fighter, but not everyone has to fight in this. Not everyone has to fight. You can just have your team members as your super moves.
And the reason why I compare it to Marvel is because it kind of has more similarities with it than other. For instance, it's its own fighting game. And that's one of the problems with trying to kind of pin it down and that's what makes it so unique. And why there hasn't really been another fighting game like it, really, even, is to give people a perspective. It's a team-based fighter, like you said. In Project Justice, you can pick 3 teammates. In Rival Schools 1, you can pick 2, right? There's launchers, there's air combos, there's like team assist combos where you can either regain health or gain meter. And then there's like, of course, attacks. And then most people have like 2 to 3 supers apiece, if I remember correctly. Does everyone have like 3, I think, of like varying power? And then, of course, you have like a triple team super, which is like, that's a lot of like similar beats to Marvel. But the way it sort of like incorporates like other aspects like tardy combos, which is the same thing as like an alpha counter. Or you know, how do I put it? Like, you don't have to switch. You can choose to switch out to another teammate at any point, like any of your assist characters, or you can just keep playing with that one character again if that's like the only person you're good with. Like for me, I'm only kind of good with Kyosuke right now, so that's the only person I play. You know, and then, you know, maybe you're losing with one character, you're not feeling it, and then okay, I can't beat this person's Roy. I got to switch to Natsu, who's more of a zoner, you know, whatever it may be.
Does the round end when you lose one character, or is it kind of like Street Fighter X Tekken, or is it like if you lose one character, you just use your remaining 2?
The game ends when you lose 2 rounds, or depending on what setting you have there, because some arcade cabs like actually make you go up to 3 wins. So yeah. But the standard is 2 wins.
So whichever character you choose, like, you don't have to switch out. It's not like KOF where like your character dies and then you switch characters. It's just like if your character dies, you can keep playing that same character, or you can choose to switch to another one, right?
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you don't have to switch.
And then, of course, like, it's sort of, you know, like Marvel or even Dragon Ball FighterZ, where you can choose characters just because their assist is good, right? Like, you want, like, you know, I'm pretty sure some people choose Tiffany because she can heal you, right? She gives you free health back, and that's, I don't know if too many characters can even do that.
Chairperson is really good for that because she heals both your health and gives you meter.
Oh, yeah, that's fantastic. So, like, I kind of noticed that, like, the people I've played so far, they're usually, like, really good with, like, maybe 2 characters. The third character is always an assist, you know, and, but you can choose to play it however you want.
Yeah. So, like, sometimes some people, too, will have, like, only one character that they would play. The other person in their team is the one that they're going to be using for an assist, and the other person in their team is the character they'll be using when so like when you do team supers, if you do a team super as well, you could kind of counter it, but it sends one of your characters to do like a mini fight. It's like a sudden death, like whoever gets the first hit will like either cancel it out or will continue the super. So like the other character could also be used as the counter for that one.
So August, just to kind of explain that, I mean, again, I don't know if like you kind of picked that up, but like, let's say you use an assist that heals you. So the other player can press a button to send in another teammate, and they will fight, and the first person to hit the other person will cancel out that healing. Or like if they hit first, like if your enemy hits first.
You can fight assists with assists?
Yeah. Assist with assists, so that like the first person to make contact with the other will cancel the healing, or the healing will succeed if you hit them first. So there's like little things like that kind of, I think that's a Project Justice thing, right? I don't think is that in Rival Schools?
No, it's Project Justice only, because in Rival Schools it's only 2 characters. Yeah, it's only 2. So like in Project Justice now there's 3, so you can kind of use the third character to cancel it out.
Yeah. And it's always kind of wild too, because when I think of Rival Schools, like I don't know if that's a more broken game than Project Justice, but
it is.
Yeah,
there's so many characters that have infinites. It's kind of why Rival Schools isn't played that so much. It's just because it's so broken. Like once you play Rival Schools, you're gonna be like, oh, this feels like the experimental. They're just experimenting on things. And Project Justice is where they really got it down.
Yep. And sort of the other thing too is like, August, to give you perspective, think of Marvel versus Capcom, right? Marvel versus Capcom's a pretty crazy game.
Yep.
That game has like 3 to 5 bars of meter, right? Rival Schools has 9 bars of meter.
Yeah, 9.
9. So think of it like that, with assists, with supers. It's like constantly like action packed, like full of damage, like, you know, type game. Whereas like Project Justice, they're like, whoa, we got to tone this down. You know, and then so they brought it back down to 5 bars a meter. But
yeah, and everyone has infinites too. So if you get hit confirmed, you know, sometimes you're just be like, okay, that's it, I lost.
Put the controller down, just watch the combo drop.
And you know, sort of like I was thinking too, you know, while I was kind of writing this, you know, making my notes and kind of making the docket for the podcast, is that how much I have like an affinity for this era of fighting games because of how experimental it was. Amazing. In terms of like, you know, early 2000s, late 90s, you know, kind of fighting games where I feel like I don't see stuff. I don't
Everyone
have the
was
same...
trying out new mechanics back then. Yeah.
And maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe it's rose-colored glasses, but I don't feel like games are really like this anymore, where it's like, I don't know. You never really kind of get those, like... It's hard for people to duplicate that feel of those early 2000s games. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. Yeah, sorry. What was that?
No. I mean, like, look at Power Stone. Like, how many people have tried to recreate a Power Stone game, and none of them can really feel as good as Power Stone 1. Have you ever noticed that? Like, there's people have tried, like, multiple times, and just none of them, like, really hit the same. And, you know, even, like, sort of, like, Star Gladiator and all of these games, they've kind of been left to the sidelines in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know if we'll ever get a collection of those, like, late 90s, early 2000s, like, fighters and, like, Capcom games. It feels like Capcom has just kind of, like, forgotten about them or, you know, left them off to the wayside.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Like, that's why there's like this myth where it's like Street Fighter V is the place for Capcom IPs to die. Because if one of the IPs show up there, that means their game is never gonna ever show up again. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like Rival Schools, unfortunately, with Akira being there. I was happy at least though.
Her moveset was cool.
Remember.
Like, she had like crazy air combos. She'd like combo you up like 20 feet in the air, and I'm like, oh man, like, I hope that comes back in 6. Like, it would look crazy, but like, I thought some of that was so cool. But yeah, like, I totally agree with Matt about that early 2000s era. Like, it felt like because games were kind of cheaper to make, but like they were still kind of high creativity and people like willing to try stuff out. You got so many like weird and unique fighting games and fighting game mechanics that like you just don't see companies taking risks on anymore. Like you got your Fate Unlimited codes, you got your like Arika Street Fighter EXs. Like you got just so many like unique weird things. Yeah,
like because that's the thing too. Like I really think Capcom is too afraid to make any risks with any other fighting game. Like you could see them like, you know, like they're like for Capcom Pro Tour, it's like, you know, just do Street Fighter and just about every other, you know, every merch that they do, especially like, you know, when they're partnering up with different stores like Uniqlo, it's all just Street Fighter. Basically all they just want you to do is play Street Fighter. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, I think it's sort of like if we were ever to see it, it would be bundled with something else. Like they're not going to sell you like, you know, maybe they could do like a digital thing where they just sell like Project Justice or Rival Schools in like they did on the PS3. You know, actually, was that a Japan only game? The Rival Schools on PS3 or PS1? PS1 to PS3.
I have no idea.
It's okay, but
your point is you're gonna see remasters before you see reboots. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think if we were ever to see like a collection, my hope at one point was that, well, remember when they released the Beat 'em Up collection and then they released that Darkstalkers collection, and I was hoping that they would kind of decide to release like an early aughts, late 90s collection of like these obscure PS1 Dreamcast fighters, or like these games that Capcom made for the Dreamcast that haven't seen the light of day. But I also think it's difficult because the Dreamcast didn't sell that well. So not many people really are familiar with these titles. And I think it was like near the tail end of like that golden age of fighting games where everybody had to make a fighter, and then they kind of like people got burned out on like, you know, Super Street Fighter 2, you know, hyper fighting, you know, and I think they kind of, you know, were doing too much, you know, especially with them releasing at sometimes like 2 versions of Darkstalkers in the same year. You know, they did that.
Yeah.
And then the next year they released Darkstalkers 2, and then another version of Darkstalkers 2. You know, it's very confusing. So
it's kind of what people complained about with the, like, you know, Marvel 3, Ultimate Marvel 3, Street Fighter 4, Ultimate Street, or, you know, Omega Street Fighter 4. Like people like hate different versions of the same game because it's like, well, why can't there just be normal DLC? Why do I have to buy a whole other game? You know,
for sure. But and you know, and so and I think I made some other connections as well, and I kind of didn't even put 2 and 2 together. But growing up and, you know, experiencing all these different games like Star Gladiator, like Rival Schools, like Power Stone, I didn't know that they're all made by the same person.
Yes, they are.
Devil May Cry, largely like Devil May Cry 2 to 5, all made by the same person. It's insane. You know, they like those era fighting games had sort of like the same like signatures that the creator put into the game. Like they have an easy combo system. They have like they're like proto 3D fighters. They have an anime aesthetic, you know, for like, you know, that PS1, Dreamcast, PS2 era. And they're all made by Hideaki Itsuno. I did not know this. And I went through and I looked through this man's catalog of games that he had worked on. And it's literally the golden age of fighting games. Like this man helped make, you know, he either directed or helped or planned all of these games, which was like Street Fighter Alpha, Rival Schools, Power Stone 1 and 2, CVS 1 and 2, Darkstalkers Chronicles, you know, Capcom Fighting Evolution, you know, hey. Devil May Cry 2 through 5, Dragon's Dogma. This dude's amazing. And, you know, I think it's really cool that, you know, sort of, like, I made that connection of, like, it's like, if you didn't realize, like, Steven Spielberg, you know, made, I don't know, like, Back to the Future and like Indiana Jones, and like you're like you love these movies for so long, and you kind of made that connection of like, oh yeah, this is why I like them, because it's that style of, you know, of this one person. But yeah, so I guess he kind of had, you know, let's see here. He had wound up making Rival Schools because he wanted to make a 60 FPS game, because originally Star Gladiator was only in 30 FPS, and I'd learned this a little while ago. And he had joined the Capcom and gotten a job there because specifically he was a person who loved fighting games, which I thought was kind of really cool. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, this guy was pretty much the person that had pioneered the polygon, like, 3D-based fighters that we know, the experimental fighters that we know Capcom for, because, let's face it, at the time, there was a little bit of a drought. Fighting games had sort of always been 2D, and we kind of were entering the 3D era, and Capcom said, hey, look, we need to kind of progress fighting games. We need to start experimenting with them. Which is why you have, like, you know, like I said, Power Stone, Rival Schools, and then, you know, you had fighting, Street Fighter EX.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
They all kind of, like, you know, had sort of a similar, you know, that sort of experimental style.
Yeah, that's the thing I liked about it. It was experimental because, like, you know, the popular 3D fighters at the time was like Virtua Fighter and Tekken, and the way those games operate are kind of more different, while Capcom kind of stuck to their guns with, like, you know, like very like, you know, impossible to do things in real life fighting. Yeah. Like launching people in the air. They basically kept, like, a lot of the feeling from 2D fighting games into 3D. And that's why it still feels like a 2D fighting game to me.
Yeah, it's like an anime 3D fighter. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I honestly, I personally consider Project Justice a 3D fighter in the same vein as Tekken, or even Virtua Fighter 3, which I don't know. Did you ever play Virtua Fighter 3? I'm sure you
did.
It also kind of like had the same sidestep button that Project Justice had, where it's like you just you had a sidestep button. Well, actually, it didn't have a sidestep button, but it was it had a sidestep button. You pressed up or down, it went in the same direction. It was a little bit smoother than Project Justice, but I feel like that's kind of like expected with like how well Sega was making their kind of 3D fighters at the time.
Yeah, we had Virtua Fighter 2, by the way, as one of the prizes for EVO.
Oh, cool.
Virtua Fighter 2 for
the Sega Saturn.
Oh wow, okay. Dang. Speaking of which, I meant to ask you, have you guys ever thought about just getting a Sega Naomi and then like running it through that?
I have a Sega Naomi.
Oh, you have a Sega Naomi? Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, I also have the thing that lets you plug in with a USB fight stick on it.
Oh, okay. So you have like a consoleized version of that game?
Kinda, yeah. I still have to net boot it though. So it might be. I still don't know how I'm gonna set that up for like events, but yeah, we have Project Justice on Naomi.
Is that so? What is the like? Oh, and I know you had talked a little bit about this, but we had talked about tournament standards and how it was different in each region. Do you want to go over like the the regional differences between each game?
Yeah. It's not really rules. It's more like just how things are going on with each region. But there is a bit of a difference because over here there are one of the rules that we try to enforce is that you cannot use the Kyosuke air glitch. When I watch some of the tournaments over there in Japan, some people are still doing it, but I don't think they're doing the one where he does it twice in the air and you just timer scam people.
Right.
Most of the time when I see people do the Kyosuke air glitch, it's just once and people could still get them out of it. So yeah, so that's one of the big things. Another one is I think this was originally enforced by Pylord, because I think in any other regions you're allowed to do infinite loops as much as you want, but for tournaments here in the US, Pylord had a rule that says you can only do the infinite loop once. So if you're gonna, I think it's either once or twice, because Hideo, Roberto, and Roy kind of have these loops, and basically you can only do them either only once or twice. So yeah, that's one of the rules that was a bit enforced here. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what originally led to the decision of that, but but when I run the tournaments, I basically run off of that rule set because that's the one that everyone plays in. But
yeah, I could definitely see why you would do that too, because what if you're a newer player and you just you say I'll give this game a try, it looks really cool, and then someone just hits you with an infinite the first time you start playing, and you're like, I'm never playing this game again, it's so bad, and you just don't you're probably not gonna give it another chance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, but oh, sorry, what were you saying?
No, I was about to say I'm kind of okay with it too, because the infinites are actually very difficult to do the inputs for. It's strict. The timing on that is very strict, so it's pretty hard to pull off. So I'm not sure if you'll see it a lot anyway, though.
As someone who's interacted with kind of new players to the scene, or players that were born way after the game came out but hopped in and started playing, what do you think is most attractive to them to hopping in the game, and how do you kind of be okay, this is what you need to learn, but you have some time to learn it. How do you think that culture kind of keeps them invested?
Yeah, I think it's just the accessibility of the game. I think I think Project Justice actually does well with like the accessibility, because a lot of the characters in this game is like pick up and play. There's just a few exceptions for a few characters where you do need to spend some time with it, but it's actually pretty easy to just understand like how the game actually works. Like kind of you guys started playing it again, and you guys were already able to pick up a lot of things.
Yeah.
Another thing too is it's the coolness factor too. Like one of the things that I've realized is that there's a lot of people that has been watching like these tournaments, and they love the game. And it's just because of how cool the game actually is. Like like you guys were talking about like that like 2000s feel with fighting games, and like how these characters just feel so unique and they have so much personality. I think that's like one of the things that really brings in like a lot of these players, and they just kind of want to keep playing because like it's like, oh, this game just feels so cool. I think that's like one of the strong factors is just making sure that the game does feel cool for someone too.
Yeah,
I think a lot of those games have a vibe to them, definitely.
Not only a vibe, but just like you said it right on the head. You said the feel. Like it's the game. The games don't feel like anything I've ever played. Like each one of Itsuno's games, it has like this unique feel to it. And I would say like that's the one thing that stops me from playing that Power Stone clone. It's because I know it's never gonna feel as good. Like I'm just gonna go play Power Stone 1. Why would I want to play this other game that's sort of like it? I could go on Fightcade and.
So like oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's actually like one of the things that some people had with like Smash Brothers clones. There's people that's there's like newer like games that kind of play like Smash Brothers, but some people are saying like this one plays way too similar to this game. Why should I play this game if I could just play the original one?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's usually the ones that feel like there's a lot more going on with them. That sets it apart from like the Smash Bros games, and that's why those guys would actually stick to those games more because they have their own unique feel. It's just like with Project Justice. Like this one just feels it just feels like no other thing.
Yeah, 100%.
The skill floor to having fun is low. Like you can get in and immediately start enjoying yourself.
Yeah, that's the thing that's great too. The skill floor for this game is just it's pretty low. Like I literally taught someone like how to play, and within a week I made them like compete in a tournament, and they got pretty far.
Yeah, there was a lot to kind of like. I would say like at first once you play it enough, like you kind of realize like some of the interesting choices that kind of happen, and I would say one of them would be the fact that there's a low and high grab that really kind of like causes a sort of mix-up scenario and makes grabs kind of dangerous to. I think we talked about it a little bit. I said grabbing is really dangerous in this game, and it's because if you grab high, someone can crouch tech you and then you get launched, right?
Yeah,
and so it's sort of like I feel like it takes more frames of animation to be able to like run up, crouch, grab than it would be to run up and grab. You know what I mean? It really didn't. And it feels like by the time I'm already crouching and trying to grab somebody, I'm probably getting launched already. So it's sort of that's sort of like interesting, like little dangerous mix-up where modern Street Fighter games, if you don't know, you can basically just, whether someone's crouching or not, for the most part, you can grab them.
Yeah.
Just by pressing 2 buttons.
Yeah, and I think it kind of adds on to like the additional mind games of this game. That's why when we do the tournaments, like when someone gets a grab, it feels more like it kind of feels like a bigger deal than what it actually is.
Yeah. For sure. And like that's why I think like I noticed too, like you kind of realize like when we were playing, I noticed that you jumped a lot, and that in itself makes jumping more valuable than sort of like going for tick grabs or something like that, because like if someone's crouching or crouch teching, you're probably gonna have to jump in on them, I would imagine.
Yeah. So jumping is a bit stronger in this game compared to a lot of other games. But you know, there are still a lot of counterplays. Like for example, like Kalis, he loves playing Zaki, and Zaki is strong in the air. Like her heavy punch just does so much hit stun, and she could basically combo into anything just as long as you get the hit confirmed.
Yeah.
But you know, once someone knows how to call someone out like on the air, especially like, you know, what I was doing on you, I was doing a lot of air grabs.
Yeah.
Once you're able to figure out, like, you know, how to call someone out in the air, like, you know, it changes the whole mentality as well. There's just so many different ways to play. Like even though there's, you know, like a lot of the combos are, you know, kind of bit of on the same side, it just feels different with like every interaction that you try to do, and like each person does have their own play style too, and you really could feel it.
Yeah, like even playing like you as Momo, like where it was like, oh man, Momo is like a different animal altogether, where it feels like she's just this rush down character who has like these insane aerial combos, and I don't know, she's very different than everyone else, but oh damn. Yeah, no, I feel like I know what you're saying. But yeah, the game's really fun. And I would say that it was interesting to see how like you mixed up your launchers, and you know, you would be able to like mix up your launchers with your air grabs with certain characters. And I noticed that was like one of your kind of things was the characters you always played always have an air grab.
Yeah. So here's the thing, like sometimes what I try to do is I try to mix up people, and like, you know, they're gonna be like, should I tech out of the air now, or should I tech out of the air later? Because if they tech out of the air now, if they don't react to like an air grab that I'm gonna do, they're gonna get air grabbed. But if they don't tech now, they're still gonna be vulnerable for more combo hits because they're just in, you know, the hit stun state. So yeah, you kind of have to think about when you also have to also tech out, and whether or not you're gonna attack, or if you're just gonna block everything in the air.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot more things that goes on just for getting back on the ground.
The mind games.
So to be clear, because I think you had mentioned it while we were playing, I think I had asked if I could tech in the air, like if I could tech grabs. Okay, because I've never successfully done it yet. I've never, like, I thought I could predict the grab, like I knew the grab was coming, but I was never able to tech it successfully. It felt very difficult, but I mean, then again, we're playing online, and I don't know.
Yeah, well, I feel like maybe that could be one of the factors, but you know, you just gonna have to time it right too. Yeah,
true. It felt very fast. It very, like, as soon as you're in the air, it feels like, you know, you're just sort of like.
Is the tech window smaller for air grab?
Because there's no like startup grab animation. It just happens. Yeah. And if you don't land the grab, it just becomes a light or a heavy move.
Yeah, for sure. What were you saying? You said is the grab?
Yeah, is the tech window smaller for air grabs?
I actually have no idea. I just know it happens so fast.
Yeah, grabs with no startup animation are like hard anyway to tech, because then it just happens. You know, you gotta know.
Yeah.
Okay, so we only have a couple more things here. So the future of Project Justice in rival schools, right? I wanted to bring this up because I read this here in 2012. Itsuno had hinted that he wanted to bring back rival schools and Capcom versus SNK, and he wanted to see a revival. Of course, he also talked about bringing back Devil May Cry, which of course we knew became Devil May Cry 5. If you know, of course, he wanted to recreate the influence that Street Fighter 2 had on the genre, which, I mean, I feel like that's a real tall order, and I don't know if that's, hey man, more power to him. But if you were to have a Project Justice 2.5 or like a Project Justice 2, what would you want to see in that game? What would you want to see different from the previous iterations?
I wish that Project Justice has the same amazing music quality as Rival Schools 1.
Oh, is Rival Schools have a better soundtrack?
I honestly think so. Yes, I think like Project Justice has a good soundtrack, but Rival Schools 1, it just it's just so mind blowing in compared to the quality. Because Project Justice is good, but there's so many tracks in Rival Schools 1 that's just like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, and and yeah, I think that's one of the things that I kind of wish it has. Another thing that I wish Project Justice also has is voice acting, because Rival Schools 1 has voice acting, but in Rival Schools 2, the story mode doesn't have voice acting.
Oh, that's okay. So it's story mode. You want like voice acting in particular.
Yeah, yeah. Are you surprised I'm talking about the single player content more?
No, I guess not. But no, I can see that. I would love to see like a whole like animated like like it's sort of, in my opinion, it's sort of like how Garou they're making like City of the Wolves, or is it City of the Wolves or City of Wolves?
City of Wolves.
Yeah. So I was expecting them to go back to the pixel art that they had in the original game.
Oh,
but that's not gonna happen. They're porting over the King of Fighters 15 animations. So what I would love them to do is I want them to take like the art style from the intro of Rival Schools 1 and then just have that be the story mode. Like have them make a whole anime. That would be really cool. Even if it's 3D,
I wish Project Justice has like the animated cutscenes of Rival Schools 1. Yeah. Like I really wish they had that. But yeah, like things like that is amazing. I don't think having pixel art sprites for Project Justice 2.5 would be the right choice though, because I feel like they cemented the fact that they are a 3D game. Like yes, I think that's a big part of their like personality. But yeah, like actually I think I know what Project Justice 2.5 would need.
Sure.
It would need the school life simulator that both of the games had. that was removed from the English release.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
You have to like take tests and stuff and other. Oh my god.
Yeah, because like I feel like that was actually a good chunk of like the personality of the game. Like okay, here's the thing. I feel like okay, Street Fighter 6, like they were like teaching you how to do things on like their story mode. Like Rival Schools 1 kind of did that with Hayato. Yeah. So like when you're doing like your school life dating simulator, like you're just going through like your regular school life, and Hayato would be sometimes there just like teaching you how to fight. And I think that's where you kind of learn what moves you assign for your character as well. So I kind of like that premise, that it's like a visual novel, not just like learning about the characters, learning about the setting, but also like becoming stronger yourself and learning how the game works. And I think that's a really good premise that they definitely need to bring back, even because I think they removed that because it kind of didn't really appeal to like the West. But yeah. I think now is a good time to do that.
Yeah,
and no, I love the progression of like Capcom story modes. Just because I think they've all been cool. Like I didn't like SF4 have like animated like anime style cutscenes. I thought that was cool. I actually like, I know no one played it, but I actually thought Capcom's 5 like fully Mortal Kombat, like let's do this just in a story mode was a really cool idea. I mean, like the game had one big linear story, and like if you played it, everyone got to see it. Yeah. And even 6 is like, yeah, let's kind of be Shenmue and just have like a live-in story mode where like, yeah, it's a story, but it's also a world that you go around and do stuff in. Also really cool. So like any of those options would be kind of sick.
Yeah, that's a definitely yes.
I think it would be cool too if they added back in the mini games that they had in Rival Schools 1, just to kind of like mix it in there. Like, yeah, I think whether there was like, couldn't you like play baseball or like tennis or something like that?
Momo wasn't in Rival Schools 1 yet. Actually, they were thinking of a tennis character for like Rival Schools 1, but they scrapped her, and it's so funny. Because like if you look at the original sketches, the tennis character was supposed to be like this big buff girl. And Project Justice happened, and Momo is such a tiny little girl.
Well,
in the opposite direction.
what if in like Project Justice 2 they just bring Momo back, but she's an adult now and she's this buff lady? What if they just?
That's what I'm gonna ask. Like, would you want them to have done like a time skip, kind of like Street Fighter did, where like the high school characters are adults now, or would you want it to be like a new set of high schoolers, or like what would you?
You want rival schools kids?
I mean, Momo is a high schooler though, so she's just really short. She's using her young appearance to just basically fool everyone. Okay. That's like the whole premise of her character. But yeah, it's still pretty funny though, because she started off as like, tricking everyone, and she actually became a good friend at the end of the story.
Of course, friendship.
Yeah, it is friendship game, SMH.
The power.
But yeah, I really wish like Project Justice 2 would happen. I'd say if they're gonna bring it back, I feel like nowadays is actually a good time for them to do it.
I think so too.
Yeah, cause like if you think about it, like like Street Fighter finally brought back like the appearance of Akira just to remind people that rival schools exist, and there are people that do play Akira, so like they're like, oh yeah, rival schools, that's really cool. And sometimes they just bring like rival schools references for here and there, and people are aware that this franchise exists. And now we've been doing right, like Project Justice in like EVO, and not just EVO here, but like the past few like EVO Japans, like it's happening too. Yeah. And I can really say that the growth of how many people are playing Project Justice is actually increasing. Like Fightcade bringing rollback, there's more and more people showing up now for Project Justice, and yeah. It's not just like in the US region, but also like basically every region here in the US too. Like there's more and more players that's basically joining. Remember, like I was like saying, I didn't think we would get a lot of players because it was pretty late, but we got a lot of players this year. Yeah. And it's kind of like that. There is a steady increase of like interest for this series, and more and more people are finding out about it too. Like there's a lot of people like watching the EVO streams that never knew about Project Justice, and this happens every year. They're like, I never knew about Project Justice, but I love this game so much now. Yeah. So yeah, there's more and more interest coming into it, and like also in Japan, like the interest there is kind of steady, because like they have multiple game centers there, yeah. And they hold tournaments there like every other week or something. There's at least one tournament that happens there like every month, and there's always a lot of people that show up there. Like their tournaments over there are much larger than here in the US, and that's because they have an active like arcade scene there. Like arcades are always thriving, no matter like how old your games are. There are always going to be players there. One of the cool things I find cool about one of their game centers is that the Project Justice arcade cab has a Dreamcast controller too, if you'd rather play on the Dreamcast controller. Yeah, Mikado Game Center. I want to go there one day. But yeah, like that's basically like how it is in Japan. They like I said, they have multiple game centers. They have TRF, they have TRF Nakano, they have Game Center Will, they have Mikado Game Center. Like there's just so much. And then like when EVO Japan happens, all of these guys come together, and there's a lot of them. One thing I find surprising though is that in EVO Japan it's best out of one.
Oh yeah!
Wow.
Yeah, that was a big surprise. I was like, oh my gosh, these matches are happening so fast, but the tournament still took long because there's just so many people there. Right. There's a lot of people that's interested in Project Justice there, and yeah, like one of the things I like about it is that so I was looking into too, like like so Japan is like I feel like Japan's like the strongest in terms of Project Justice, and then Korea is like like kind of side by side there. And I know Korea also plays a lot, but nowadays they just play in Fightcade. But sometimes they just gather like all the Project Justice like players in Korea, and I think they just play at some guy's house too, and they just have like these big exhibition matches, and they're like super strong. And then there are a few times where they all go to Japan together as like a team, and they just fight against people at like Mikado Game Center or something. Because I found pictures of like Team Japan and Team Korea together. I'm like, oh my god.
Oh, those competitions are super cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it really feels like whoever is like basically anyone that plays Project Justice, they actually feel close. Like even like with EVO, like I felt like there's a very tight knit feeling of community. Like we have the last year we have someone from 3rd place, like from Mexico, and he comes over here and he gave all the people involved in running the tournament like these Mexican snacks. I'm like, but it's like you're like giving this to us like your family. It's like, I appreciate you guys. I love Project Justice so much. And I'm like, cool. Oh my gosh. But yeah, like it's great. Like we also have players from Canada. Like the first Project Justice tournament in EVO was from Canada. Was ran by people from Canada. It was from Toronto top tiers, and recently I just found out that like so remember I said like I originally played Project Justice in the Philippines,
right?
So recently like all of the Project Justice like arcade cabinets, just like in the United States, like they're all gone in the Philippines. I visited like a while ago and I was like, oh, where's all the Project Justice players? And basically like they're still playing actually, because just a few days ago actually, like literally on Friday, I had someone check out of all places a game developer expo, and there was a Project Justice setup over there, and there were competitive players playing. I'm like, in a game developer expo? No way. And I was so happy about that. I was like, you guys still exist? And I was talking to them, and I got like a bit of history. Basically, like what happened is so Philippines have like like their own like little EVO, but it's not EVO, but I'm just calling it that because it's like their biggest tournament. It's called what was like Rev Major. There we go. It's a really big tournament, and basically like years ago, like the person that brought that competitor that Dreamcast, so like they run it like a business that they just bring like retro systems. So and their favorite game just happens to be like Project Justice. So they set up Project Justice there, and they found someone who's really skilled there, and they were like, there's strong players, and they tried it out for themselves, and they got whooped, and they're like, oh my gosh, we have to bring this back. So it's pretty funny because like they like recently they've been trying to get people to come start playing this game again, and when they gather people, there's at least like 10 people that they're able to get. And it's not just that, but I also found out that there's also people from a different region that's also kind of doing the same. So people in the Philippines are also like trying to get back and play Project Justice again. Yeah. And I'm actually really happy about that, because I have a mission of trying to find out who was that one player who keeps whooping me at Project Justice when I was a kid, and I have no idea who that is.
Find him. You gotta find your rival. You gotta find your Gary Oak.
It was a purple Momo, and I have to find him. I want to know. I want to know if I become stronger already.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's actually one of the secret reasons why I run a EVO. I'm like,
you will find him.
If I run this, maybe I'll find him. But it still hasn't happened. But yeah,
if you build it,
I at least have a lead now. Like I actually recently found out information. It's like, I was like, do you know any of the players that play at this particular mall? They're like, oh yeah, I kind of know, but some of them already have their own families. I'm like, oh, I see. Yeah.
To be like that.
It's just like Thanksgiving or like Christmas or something like that in the Philippines. I hear there's like a knock at the door, and then like this man goes over the door, and like opens it up, and there's like ChairGTables like with a Dreamcast, and he's like, we're gonna play. And then like and that's the Christmas, that's your Christmas gift, is meeting this man. And then he just like dies and then fades away. It's like just like Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's gone to the ethos, so he can finally die.
I'm gonna be like, you don't remember me, but I was that kid that was trying to copy your Momo moves.
Damn, that's cool. Dude, some of them got to come out for a retirement just to play some Project Justice. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was just so happy. Like I thought Project Justice was like nowhere now in the Philippines, but it still is. There's a few people that are not even in like the project wasn't even Project Justice like players, but like there are friends I made back home that I basically just taught them how to play, and I'm like, oh, you guys are strong. One of them got pretty close to beating EVO Champion actually, and I was like, oh my gosh, you guys are making me proud. You guys got to show up here one day.
That's awesome.
It's
awesome to see old games get their shine finally, and like just still be played, still be talked about. I think that's one of the best parts about fighting games versus, the FIFAs or the games playing every year. You know what I mean? Like, this game still has a culture, years later. Just because it's a complete thing. It's a complete game. It's not like a game of the year or game of the week. It's just like, no, it's a game. Let's still play it,
Yeah, like
Definitely.
this game, it really does stand out. I think it's just one of the unfortunate facts that, the Dreamcast really didn't do well. So, and the fact that Capcom really only cares about the crossover series and Street Fighter for their fighting games.
I mean, you say that, but then again, we haven't seen CVS2 since the PlayStation 3. Like, what else is it on, really? I mean, like even like they had to get. I mean, what is it? Arcade 1-Up. Yeah, for like Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Yeah.
So it's like and it's like $600 for that game. And even then I was looking up prices for Project Justice on the Dreamcast, like an actual hard copy, and it's probably like around $300-400 for like an in-case, like with booklet, copy of the game, which is pretty absurd.
Yeah, both Project Justice and Rival Schools is pretty expensive.
Yep. But yeah, so kind of like wrapping up here, you can find Project Justice for a lot cheaper on Fightcade 2. In fact, there are other people you can actually play with it across the internet, unless you have a nice local there, in which case, much blessing to you. Or hey, maybe even think about holding a local of your own. Maybe have some tournaments at your house.
Yeah, there's actually people now here too in the US that have been holding locals. I'm actually happy about that.
For Project Justice, that's awesome.
Yes! There was like a local that had like 20 people in Florida. I was like, what? I was so happy. I was like, oh my gosh. Like I said, it's really happening again.
Yeah.
Things are happening.
And for those of you that do not know, like Fightcade 2 is basically an online server that hosts multiple classic fighting games, and your best bet to kind of like getting into that is like looking up some YouTube videos on how to get the auto script downloader. Make sure you check that out because it makes getting games a lot easier. You don't have to find your ROMs, allegedly, and so basically I'm really glad that these games are getting the second win that they are getting. And of course, don't forget, guys, to follow ChairGTables and join the Project Justice / Rival Schools Discord. Link will be in my description of the podcast or the video on my YouTube channel. Also, guys, if you have not followed the channel yet, please, follow us on Twitch, follow us on YouTube. Hey, every follow helps the channel. We stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sundays being the podcast. Chair, where can people find you?
It's pretty easy. Just search up ChairGTables and you'll be able to find it.
And I'm assuming like YouTube, Twitch,
yep,
and Twitter.
At Twitter, yeah, just about everything is ChairGTables.
ChairGTables, awesome. Well, also, August, where can people find you?
Same back time, same back channel, chilling out here in the Backlog podcast, helping supply Matt with the latest news, and just hanging out.
Well, you guys, you can find the Backlog on pretty much everything. Twitch, Instagram, YouTube. We're on TikTok. We're on X or Twitter, if I didn't say that already. And you can find us everywhere you can find podcasts, including apparently TikTok has a podcast thing you can port to now, which is pretty interesting. I'm just kind of messing with that now. But until then, guys, this has been the Backlog Podcast number 61. We'll see you soon. Peace out, y'all. Bye-bye.
Okay,
Peace.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.